Today, there's something that has always been so dear to my heart that I would like to shed some light on. Today, as young women, self-awareness, realization, and enhancing our self-worth are our biggest aspirations. However, in our societies that we live in, it is always perceived as arrogance or an inflated sense of importance, and sometimes lack of humility. And more often than not, this is always subjected to women compared to men in our societies. Of course, I am sharing from experience of a young woman who was exposed through beauty pageant platforms at a young age, platforms that actually launched me into spaces where millions of people had an opinion of who I was supposed to be, regardless of who I was as a character or soul. And honestly, this happens to millions of other women across the globe. But the saddest part of the story is these things are deeply rooted in our cultures. They stem from the upbringing, just from the beginning in our own houses, where the nurturing of girls versus how boys are nurtured. At a very young age, our little brothers or the boys are taught to be vocal, to be confident, to always defend themselves, to always dust themselves up and pick themselves up, training them to launch into the world and conquer the world. And on the other hand, we at a very young age, as girls, the first thing we are taught is to never raise our voices to our brothers, regardless who the naughty child is in the house. To always be respectful, to always be submissive. We are taught the laundry work, the kitchen work. And I don't think there is anything wrong with domestication and humility. The problem is domestication and humility are values that should be instilled in both girls and boys as equals, because these are virtues or traits that every person should uphold. They shouldn't be subjected to one gender. And when these boys launch into the world and take up leadership positions and be the men they are supposed to be, they are regarded as men of character, great leaders, men that are firm. And when our less fortunate young women that have grown into toxic environments of depleting their self-worth, once they are privileged enough to grow old and, have the privilege to be self-aware and embrace their power and walk in their power, we are given so many petty names. We are subjected to so much society's scorn, bombarded with a lot of pressures to ascend to the demands of societies and abide by the systems that demand us. Today, I'd like to speak to any young woman that while we acknowledge that humility is character strength and a virtue that everyone or every human being should uphold, it is very important to note that humility is not about losing your voice. It is not about having a low opinion of who you are. Humility is not about serving at the beckon of another person or living by their whims and mercies. Humility instead is about self-assurance, acknowledging your flaws, taking pride in who you are, taking pride in your qualities, taking pride in your strength. However, without extremes of make other people seem worthless. So my plea to every young woman today is, whatever that you love and want to do, just go for it. Go for it. Shoot for the stars. Throw caution to the wind. Fear nobody, especially when these things are supposed to be bettering you. Shoot for the stars. Conquer the world. Be aware that your power is within you. You are who you are because it's who you are, not because any other person has to approve that. Your power is within you. Go and conquer the world.